Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Suzanne Weeks, and I'm the CEO of SIAM. And I want to first do this. I first would like to say a public thank you to Philippe and Claire-Lise Tondeur for their generous gift to SIAM that has allowed us to support this evening and other activities in this vein with their generous gift. So what are we here about? We said we have a fireside chat, and no, we do not have a roaring fire, but still we have a nice, comfortable atmosphere to talk about CHIPS and Science Act and AI and the community, what it means for us. So just a quick background before I step off. On August 9th, 2022, the United States President Joe Biden signed into law what's known as the CHIPS and Science Act of 2022. And this act authorizes historic investments in curiosity-driven exploratory research and use-inspired translational research. These investments will advance the most innovative ideas across all areas of science and engineering in the US, accelerating their translation to solutions for today's challenges and tomorrow's at speed and scale. So I'll list for you some of the key technology focus areas enumerated in the CHIPS and Science Act, that legislation of 2022. We talk about advanced manufacturing, advanced materials, artificial intelligence, which of course is relevant to this community for sure, biotechnology, communications and wireless, cyber infrastructure and advanced computing, cybersecurity, disaster risk and resilience, energy technology, again, all in the SIAM realm, quantum information science, semiconductors, and microelectronics. So again, today we're happy to discuss what the CHIPS and Science Act means for data science and AI. And we're happy to have with us Dr. Shree Taylor of Elder Research, and Dr. Taylor leads the Government Analytics and Innovation team at Elder Research, and you'll hear more from Dr. Taylor. And Dr. Francis Williams of Clark Atlanta University. And Dr. Williams is a Vice President for Research and Sponsored Programs at Clark Atlanta University, which is right here in Atlanta. And I'm just here to do the easy part, which is just introducing the session. But we also have Dr. Talitha Washington, who is a co-organizer of this conference. But Dr. Washington works at she's the director of the Atlanta University Center Data Science Initiative, which has support from MasterCard, United Health, among other things. She's the director and the lead principal investigator of the NSF National Data Science Alliance. And Dr. Washington is also a tenured professor of mathematics at Clark Atlanta University and an affiliate of Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman College. She is also the president of one of our sister societies at SIAM, which is the Association for Women in Mathematics. So this is her second year out of 2 years as president of AWM. And as part of her career, she's also been a program director at NSF. And I think I'll stop there. There's a lot to say, but I'll just add Dr. Washington is a fellow of AWM. She's a fellow of the American Mathematical Society and the American Association for Advancement of Science, AAAS.
It's good to be here with you all this evening to talk about, well, not potato chips, but CHIPS and Science Act. And if you didn't know, CHIPS is an acronym, and the acronym is Creating Helpful Incentives to Produce Semiconductors. Well, what does that have to do with artificial intelligence? What does that have to do with data science? And what are these incentives? You know, when I hear incentives, I hear funding, right? What are the funding opportunities? And what is this national movement, we'll say, all about? So tonight we're just going to have a discussion about the ins and outs and what does it mean for our communities and ways that you too can participate and be a part of this. And so the CHIPS and Science Act, as she says, was signed into law August 2022. And it really was to fuel the innovation technology ecosystem in the United States to bring manufacturing of microelectronics back. So I don't know, you might have a phone, right? You might have a credit card with a little thing on there, to the chip reader. You might have a car, a tablet. All of these things need microchips to function. And so this production really is, we'll say, almost essential in air quotes, whatever that means, to us in our everyday lives. And so this incentive, by the way, we're talking $52 billion with a B, $52 billion in incentives, really is to spur semiconductor manufacturing, research, and development. Again, with the United States aimed at reducing reliance on foreign chip production. When we're thinking about the research trajectory in the United States, and potentially for you as well, there's been $200 billion with a B dollars allocated over the next decade for scientific research, innovation, and STEM education, focusing on technologies such as AI, quantum computing, clean energy, and biotechnology. As we think about bringing this technology development, manufacturing back to the United States, there's going to be a need to have a workforce. So there's workforce development incentives to produce a diverse, highly skilled workforce to meet these demands. Now, one thing that I'll just end with before asking questions is that the CHIPS and Science Act renamed the NSF Includes program in the name of Eddie Burgess Johnson. And as our wonderful executive director mentioned, I'm the PI of the NSF National Data Science Alliance, which is in Eddie Bernice Johnson Includes program. So when we're thinking about these things at a national scale to really upskill, we'll say, the country in key technology areas, data science, AI, quantum, biomanufacturing, you can keep going, right? There's a little bit of something for everyone. So first, Dr. Williams, could you start by giving us just a brief overview of what this CHIPS and Science Act, what does it mean to you, and why is it important for industries like AI and data science?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. As was mentioned, I'm Frances Williams. So I serve as the Vice President for Research at Clark Atlanta University, but I'm also a researcher in the microelectronics area, and my background is electrical engineering. So I'm very excited about the CHIPS and Science Act and what it provides. So I think you did a great job in terms of stating what's in the act and the funds in the billions with the B that are available. So these funds will boost semiconductor research, development, and production, which will ensure the U.S.'s leadership in technology that forms the foundation of everything from automobiles to household appliances. So really, semiconductor advancement have been the foundation and sparked innovation across various industries that we all use every day. So as it relates to AI and data science, semiconductors are crucial for artificial intelligence. They provide the necessary hardware for complex computations. They also play a crucial role in processing vast amounts of data quickly and accurately. So this capability is instrumental in fueling a wide range of applications. And so, again, I'm on the semiconductor manufacturing and packaging side, but this area, again, is the foundation for so many of our technologies, including AI and data science, data analytics.
I remember back in the day when I was an undergrad, my first internship, I was a pharmaceutical packaging intern where I worked on the plant floor in Bristol-Myers, and I did a project on the safe handling of cytotoxic compounds. Now, years later, we have manufacturing coming back, so it's really neat to see that swing. So Dr. Taylor, from your perspective, as someone who works in data science and AI industry, How do you see the CHIPS and Science Act fostering this innovation across the terrain of data science and AI?
Excellent question. Thank you for that. Good evening again, and it's great to be here. My name, again, is Shree Taylor, and I'm the Vice President of Government and Analytics and Research and Innovation at Elder Research, which is a government contracting firm. And I would say in working as a government contractor, what policy like this does is it brings things to the forefront for all of us in industry. And when you see an initiative such as this come with such support, funding like this, it gets everyone's attention. And what it does is it helps us to streamline and focus our efforts. So this is a big global deal. And so this act will make sure that we remain focused, that we have a collective momentum, and that we're all working together. And it helps to facilitate these partnerships, creative collaborations that will help make sure that we continue to harness all of the wonderful talent that we have here.
And speaking of partnerships, Dr. Williams, you're the PI of the HBCU CHIPS Network grant, a grant from the National Science Foundation. Can you share with us about this HBCU CHIPS Network and how it aligns with the goals of the CHIPS and Science Act? And what impact do you expect to have on both research and workforce development?
Sure. So the HBCU CHIPS Network is a collaboration partnership between historically Black colleges and universities, government agencies, other academic institutions, and industry. And it will serve as a national resource for those of us at HBCUs who are working in the semiconductor research and education arenas. So what I will say about the network is through the CHIPS and Science Act, we have been able to come together, and I say three words, in terms of the benefit of the network. It allows us to come together as institutions, again, industry partners. We have synergy, we're able to leverage, and we also have complementary expertise. And so at our HBCUs, there is expertise. We do have facilities, but we also, there are 107 HBCUs. We also have HBCCs that are involved, which are our HBC community colleges. And so we have diversity there in terms of large R2 institutions with large clean room facilities to community colleges who are focused on teaching and educating students. And so that allows us to come together to leverage our facilities, leverage what we're doing with our academic programs and with curricular development and in educating our students, so workforce development. So this has been great. We've been able to go after various funding opportunities, and we've been successful in a number of those opportunities. The first one that we received was from the National Science Foundation. I'm the PI. Dr. Washington is one of the co-PIs on that grant. And again, we're able to come together to form this network, of course, but it's a collaborative because many times HBCUs, people think of us, okay, they're able to educate students, and of course, a number of our students are from underrepresented populations, but we also, again, have expertise in R&D. So we're able to come together and leverage, like I said, there's synergy there because we have is multidisciplinary collaborations, and then we have complementary expertise across our institutions. So we're able to pursue large-scale grants. And so it's really been a great experience working with the various institutions, but also working with industry, because we know that those partnerships are also important as we are educating students, as we are doing and conducting R&D in terms of collaborating with industry as well. So that's been a great experience to come together since February. So it's a new network, but we've been on the move since February, working together, submitting a number of proposals. We've had a number of proposals that have been awarded, and we're still growing.
Yeah,
So,
wonderful.
yes.
Yes, I love our weekly morning meetings. So, the work is definitely noticed. And I also add that the HBCU CHIPS Network was funded by the Includes program,
Yes.
which is named in the CHIPS and Science Act. So, yeah, and Eddie Bernice Johnson, who's named for, was a staunch advocate for supporting HBCUs. Dr. Taylor, as someone who works at this intersection, data science, consulting, AI, and also a proud graduate of Clark Atlanta University, or actually we call it the illustrious Clark Atlanta University. Every school has to have an adjective. How do you see the CHIPS and Science Act influencing the practical implementation of AI solutions in the private sector?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, I graduated from Clark Atlanta University many years ago, and then went on to get my PhD in computational mathematics. And so when I got my PhD, data science wasn't really a thing. Hadn't been coined at that time. And AI wasn't as common language as it is now in our conversations. But I will say that, again, this act is forging a lot of opportunities for us to bring more access and accessibility to all of our students who demonstrate an interest in AI. So now it doesn't matter, as we all likely know, when you think of AI and when you are engaged in AI, it's expensive. It's an expensive task to have a GPU, or for a business to own its own GPU, or to have compute time in the cloud. And a lot of times these are barriers of entry for a lot of our students, because you need a sandbox. You need an opportunity to kind of play around with the toys and get your feet wet, and to have that experience before you make a life commitment and decide, is this something that I want to do? And so this act, again, it will hopefully, as it evolves, it'll bring more things to the forefront, to the table, where students can have hands-on experiences. And those hands-on experiences will make students more comfortable. They'll become more fluent. It'll become a natural part of their day-to-day life. And then it'll become a hobby, and it will evolve and not become so foreign. And that's a way for that this act, through funding, through partnerships, will help expand the aperture.
Wonderful. So, Dr. Williams, the HBCU CHIPS Network is fostering collaboration across multiple institutions and also facilitating cross-sector partnerships. How do you see this multidisciplinary research impacting innovation in data science and AI, particularly in the realm of microelectronics? And what exactly is microelectronics?
Sure. So microelectronics is really just as the name implies, it's small electronics. And so you may also hear microchips. When we refer to chips, these are small electronic circuits that are in your phones, your computers, your appliances, your automobiles. And so it's just these small circuits that have been fabricated or created in semiconductor materials. And I won't get into what semiconductor materials, not yet. But we're able to make these small devices, and one of the technologies is to increase or synthesize materials with better properties so that we can shrink the devices so your phones and electronics can do a lot more than your last phone. I think about, and so I'm going to age myself and go way back. I think about the older, what we call car phones. And they basically were like in a bag, had this big antenna that stuck out the bag, and you would have it in your car, and you could do two things, basically make a call and receive a call. But now we think of our phones, and they're much smaller, and you could play games, watch movies, and do all types of things on this much smaller device. And that's because you have many more electronic circuits. They're smaller, so they're closer together, so they're faster as well because your electrons are moving quicker. They don't have as far to move. And so we have a lot of technology there that allows us as consumers to be able to take advantage of those discoveries. And so with that, I think I moved away from your question. So I know you asked me about microelectronics, and you know how I get excited about microelectronics. But the multidisciplinary research groups and how we have researchers and faculty members from electrical engineering to chemistry to mathematics to physics who are all working in this multidisciplinary area, which has, so I call myself a fabber. I actually work in a clean room and create the devices, but there's so many enabling technologies even around that technology. And so when we talk about the impact on data science and AI, again, going back to semiconductors really being the foundation for many technologies and providing new and improved technology to allow these emerging fields to really take off. I think, of course, I'm excited about, the microelectronics side, but it just opens the door to many other areas such as AI, as I talked about before.
Very good. It's exciting. Dr. Taylor, from your experience at Elder Research, how can companies take advantage of these innovations and advancements of AI that are likely to emerge from research supported by CHIPS and Science Act?
Right.
And by the way, you all are carrying out the research, if
Yes.
you didn't know that.
Yeah, it's very important research that is going on.
Yes.
Well, a lot of the research that goes on, sometimes we adopt the research before it's complete, which is a good thing. It's more of an agile approach, as opposed to waiting until all the research is complete. So I will say that large language models is an example of AI that the government is beginning to use a lot more of now. And for businesses and organizations and how companies can prepare to take advantage of those innovations, large language models may be a bit much depending on how large your organization is and how well funded it is. But even small language models are a good place to start small, learn fast, and then to scale up as needed. So in our business, we are a small business of primarily data scientists and data engineers and whatnot, and we serve our clients, but a lot of times we need to use the same technology that we're providing for them. We need to use it for ourselves. And so what we've done most recently is we've developed small language models to kind of go through our repository of proposals that we submit to the government. And so what it does is it cuts down on the amount of time that it takes to prepare a compliant proposal for the government. And so we are able to increase our throughput with the same level of quality, because we no longer have to manually go and find this information or rely on someone who's been in the company for 25 years because they have it up here. Is now we can just go and sift through the information and bring it out, the relevant information, a lot quicker. So there are a lot of different ways that organizations can begin to adopt. It doesn't have to be the grandiose, big things.
Very cool. So Dr. Williams, the CHIPS and Science Act calls for building a diverse and skilled microelectronics workforce. What is needed to support these efforts, and how important is industry collaboration in achieving these goals?
Yeah, so first let me just talk about why that's so important. So again, as we talk about one of the needs that's being addressed with the CHIPS and Science Act is workforce development. And that's because we need to build and to grow domestic talent, especially in STEM areas. We know that's the area that we need more people, need more educated and trained people in this area. And so we know that part of the issue is it's a numbers game. And actually finding and getting, even starting young, getting more students involved in the STEM area. And so one of the pools that we are pursuing, or is important to pursue, are the underrepresented groups that are not represented at parity in these areas. So if we can have them involved in the STEM areas, and particularly in the semiconductor manufacturing packaging area, then we can start addressing, that's one way to start addressing that problem of preparing a workforce in that area. So in terms of what's needed for building a diverse and skilled workforce, number one is resources. And so that's why we are very excited about the CHIPS and Science Act, in that it education and workforce development is one of the areas of focus. And so that helps us to provide funding and personnel to make sure that we have modern academic programs and curriculum, also laboratories and research facilities to be able to conduct cutting-edge research, as well as to educate our students. We know that it's important that we integrate research and education and have that as part of the experience for our students as well. Partnerships with industry are very important when we talk about education, workforce development. A lot of us in institutions work with industry in terms of just advisement on what's needed in our academic programs to prepare our students for the workforce. So, and it's not just that, sometimes it could be they provide software, modern software that we can implement in our classrooms, technology integration into the classroom, as well as real world applications that we can actually introduce to our students through our curriculum. And then lastly, of course, will be the experiences, real world experiences through internships and co-ops that those partnerships with industry provide. So resources and collaborations and partnerships.
Yeah, very important. And I know at least in mathematics, those who go to get a PhD in mathematics, I think it's over half now do not go into academia. And so in thinking about what does that mean for a PhD, at least in my case, mathematics, graduate level education, and how do we prepare students? I know my student went up to work for JP Morgan in cybersecurity, machine learning. So, just an example. Then also, last month, both the National Science Foundation and Department of Commerce announced it was going to spend $30 million, that's with an M, $30 million to establish a network coordination hub that will manage the national network for microelectronics education. So there's going to be a big rollout very soon about how to do that. And of course, you know, I'm biased. Mathematics is the queen of all sciences, so I'm hoping,
I agree.
you know, that we're all in there, right? Yes, sort of thing. But Dr. Taylor, in your work, what strategies have you found effective in building data science and AI talent pipelines, especially when we think about domestic talent? And then what are some ways that we can all further support workforce development in the AI sector?
Yeah, this is like the $1 million question here. This one is hard because first you have to build the excitement and the interest to get a population, to get kids interested and willing to sacrifice. And I recognize that that may be a controversial word, but that is reality. It is a sacrifice. There has to be a passion there, and there has to be discipline, and there has to be that commitment. But there's a great wealth of reward on the other side. And so building that pipeline, when I go out and I have the opportunity to speak to students, I share with them that, one, you do need to be in STEM to come work in the industry that I work in. You also, because I'm a government contractor, you do need to be a U.S. citizen, and so that's very important. And the third piece of it is you will need to either go for a public trust background check or Department of Defense a security clearance, which again requires that you kind of open the kimono, if you will, and allow for the government to do their checks. And this is all for protection and the safety of our country. But if you are willing to do that, I tell students, you will never be unemployed unless you choose to be unemployed, because there will always be opportunities. There's always a shortage in finding the talent and then the additional requirements to meet the objectives with certain, a lot of the government agencies. And so building that pipeline is a challenge, but it's based on developing good and sustainable partnerships and relationships with academic institutions in the area, in the DC area where I am, with Georgetown, with Howard University, with American University, and a host of other institutions, so that when their students are ready to go into the workforce, that they think of me, that they think of supporting or just remaining in that network. Because even if they don't choose me first, you know, maybe 5 or 6 years down the line when they're looking for a change or for a different experience, they will think of me then. So this is definitely the long game that we're playing. We're talking decades here of being committed to build that pipeline and make sure that we have a strong, solid domestic pipeline that we can pull from.
Wonderful. So I'm going to ask one more set of questions, and then I'm going to open it up for questions from you all. And I think there's a mic here, and there may be one there. I just can't see behind the podium, but there's a mic there. So Dr. Williams, with the rapid advancements in AI and data science, what role, if any, do you think government initiatives like the CHIPS Act could play in setting ethical standards and ensuring responsible AI development, especially in research environments?
Yeah, so when we are referencing research environments, I think one way to address that is actually, so again, we have the CHIPS and Science Act that's been able to provide funding through various funding agencies. So I actually would almost charge that. I think a good way to do that is to have those funding agencies involved in terms of making sure that researchers who are applying for funding address that in their proposals, in their projects. So, for example, we know when we prepare NSF proposals that we have the two merit review, intellectual merit and broader impact. And we know that that's part of the evaluation of our of getting funding. And so it's an important piece to actually be able to address that. And so I think through initiatives like the CHIPS and Science Act, as they provide the funding to the funding agencies, I think a good place to do that is at the funding level. So make it a criteria where you actually have to address that as a researcher and how you're going to address ethical standards with your projects. And seems to work very well with the two, with the NSF. And I think if we add that as another evaluation criteria that will, first of all, show the importance of actually having a plan for your project and then being able to articulate what it is.
Very good. And I know back in October of 2023, President Biden signed an executive order on the safe, secure, and trustworthy development and use of artificial intelligence. And it's been really neat to kind of see how this has, I'll say, propagated across the funding agencies. NSF has a whole AI initiative, and it's like they've already spent a whole bunch, and there's more. And also, National Endowment for the Humanities has an AI initiative to fund AI centers, AI research in the humanities, looking at policy, looking at the humanistic aspects. National Institutes of Health has AI across all of its institutes, so it's really interesting to see how this is rolled out and really infused into how we're thinking about research. Dr. Taylor, how can we help, or how can one help organizations navigate some of these, I'll say hard, maybe known and unknown, ethical considerations of AI implementation in real-world applications, and how can organizations ensure inclusive growth in AI and data science?
Yeah, this is a problem or a topic that we're working on in real time. We are taking a very close look at responsible AI, or AI as we call it, and ethical AI, and understanding how can we put a framework so not that it's a recipe or a checklist, but that it becomes a part of the culture that we work and live in with our clients and with our partners. And so as a part of this framework, as an example, when building a model, we don't advocate that anyone build a model in silo. You don't build a model alone. There has to be collaboration so that you can have someone kind of holding you accountable for your logic or for your way of thinking, because a lot of us, you have inherent biases, some of which are known, but some of which are unconscious to you. And so as you have more and more people working with you, collaborating with you, looking at your model, asking questions, challenging you, it makes for a better end product. And so that is something that we definitely advocate for: teamwork, not building models in silo, and just making sure that you have the humility to be able to accept the feedback that you'll get and know that it is for the betterment of the product.
Very good. Do you all have any questions for our panelists?
Oh, wow. Yes, this is, oh my gosh, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I'm in a leadership position, and as I was matriculating through my degrees in mathematics, leadership was not a part of the curriculum. And even when I did my postdoc and, first job, so on and so forth, but leadership is a competency that I think everyone needs to have, regardless of your background. communication, oral and written skills are very important. There are a host of competencies. Those are the ones that come to the forefront. And just today, in like real time, got a phone call from folks on my team. There was an issue, and as I unpacked it, it was a misalignment, misunderstanding. There were people who were talking past each other. And I know in managing a large team of data scientists and data engineers, a lot of times they just want to get to the technical work. But in the job that I do, that's probably 20% at best on a really good day. If you are doing your job as a consultant in the full realm, the full scale, it takes a lot of communication, patience, asking the right questions so that you can first formulate your mathematical problem or whatever optimization problem or whatever the problem is. It has to be properly formulated. You got to have the proper parameters and all of these things. And so even interviewing, having interpersonal skills to be able to elicit and extract information, translate that into a form that you can use in your model. But the person, the business user, end user, is not necessarily interested in the rhetoric or the language that you use, that we like to talk. So there's a lot of translation. There are a lot of what are called soft skills. Skills, again, that may not necessarily be taught as a technical person, but that are very important. I taught graduate math at Georgetown for a few years, and as long as I was assigning problems that had a closed form solution, the students were acing it. Even when I introduced MATLAB and solving some problems computationally, I would get a few students to come to my office hours to ask questions. It wasn't until I insisted that they work on projects together and to come up with a formulation. I would give them a problem. There would be so much ambiguity around it, and that was by design because that is the real world. And so they would have to figure out, these are critical thinking skills, and they were so stressed. But this is how the best way to prepare them for the real world, because clients will stress you out. And you need the skills to be able to address it, move beyond it, and get to a place where you can actually do the AI. So I know that was a long answer, but yeah, that's a very critical piece of success in this field.
Dr. Williams, did you want to add to that?
No, I think she did a good job with that one.
I know, they didn't teach leadership in calculus class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
What would be like great resources? I'm a grad student, so I can't really do project in class no more. But what would be great resources as I'm graduating and hoping to go to the workforce to develop the leadership skills, as well as communication skills and stuff like that?
So I would say, and definitely I think anyone on the panel can answer this, but even volunteering or becoming involved in organizations like this, SIAM, there are opportunities to volunteer where you will need to use non-technical skills to put on a program of this magnitude, say. There are, and it doesn't have to be specifically focused like in a technical field, just even in the community. Anytime you have to deal with people, that's a good opportunity to sharpen those skills. I tell people all the time, I have a PhD in math, but working with people is way more difficult than the PhD in math. And I stand behind that, because in math, I was looking for that answer, I got the answer, you know, you go to office hours or whatnot, but when it comes to people, everybody is different. And there are people who can block your agenda, and then there are people who you need to have in your network, your ecosystem, to help lift you up, to help you meet your goals. And it's a lot of strategy, but opportunities are all around. Anytime you see people, like, run towards it and exercise those muscles.
And I'll add to that. So there are other opportunities to share your research with audiences that may not be technical. Right. So say like outreach activities. And that's a great opportunity for you to be able to articulate what you're doing to people or younger students, and you really have to think through like the importance, but how do you say that in a way so that I would always tell my students, you know, even your grandmother should be able to understand like why your research is important. So you have a really technical language that you speak to your colleagues, but you should still be able to share either if you do outreach at an elementary school, middle school, museum. And so that I did have opportunities like that while I was a graduate student, and that allowed me to be able to communicate and find different ways of communicating something that was very technical, still being able to share the importance of that work, but having to say it and share it in a way that that audience could understand. So I would say being able to share and having opportunities to share your research to various audience helps with the communications.
I'll just add just a couple ideas onto that. That was fantastic. Toastmasters International.
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard of it. So it's like so I would ride my bike during my lunch hour back in the day to downtown, and basically meet for an hour, and it was a nice community group where we got to practice public speaking. And you can actually, so I went through 10 exercises. I got a competent communicator award at the end, but you can talk about whatever you want. And you're talking with community folks, and they will give you critiques, but if you are terrible, they're there to support you. If you're great, they're still there to support you, so there's no grade, which I love that. And so I use that as a way to help figure out, well, how do I do this presentation and that sort of thing. So check out Toastmasters International. There's probably a club near you. And then if you can pick up training in project management, that's also helpful. At YouTube University, we'll have some project management fundamentals, LinkedIn Learning, Google, that sort of thing. Project management it's a good skill to have. I got it late in life just by accident because somebody said it, and I was like, wait, they actually teach you how to manage projects? Like, what is that? No idea. I can manage everything better now. But there's, like I said, there's LinkedIn Learning, right? There's edX, there's HarvardX, there's a bunch of X's, Coursera. I would watch Coursera videos like it was TV. You don't have to register, you don't have to pay for it. Leading teams, managing teams, that sort of thing. And I would just watch the videos as I was doing dishes or doing the laundry. So just to kind of fill in, what those things are. So, that's great. So I think we just have a couple minutes left. And so, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is actually for Dr. Washington. Why are we here at this mathematics of, I know you can't see, but you can hear, the Mathematics of Data Science Conference, talking about legislation, the CHIPS and Science Act? I know you're a policy buff, but why is it important for us here as computational scientists, mathematicians, data scientists, to even pay attention to what's going on in DC? This is the leading question, but I'm leaving it open for you.
It's a leading question.
Why is this, why are we doing this?
There's a saying, you're either at the table or you're on the menu. I was telling Dr. Taylor previously, I remember there was a report that came out some time ago. I won't say who put out the report. It was on STEM graduate education, and no mathematician was involved. And I was like, help me make that, that somehow needs to make sense. So if we're thinking about really, for lack of a better word, re-engineering the workforce, re-engineering semiconductor research, figuring out how do we create these new technologies. The creation and development of those technologies, my biased view here, just mine, is it necessitates mathematics, data science, AI, and all the surrounding disciplines. And so I think for me, it's a call for at least the mathematics, data science, AI communities and more to really take heed. There's a lot of opportunity right now to be a part of this, I'll say, big movement, big national movement to bring the R&D back, production back to this country. And I think although people keep saying engineers, I'm a little biased, right? I'm an applied mathematician, so I hang out with engineers all the time. So yes, the engineers are really kind of claiming it, but I think mathematics, AI, data science will play, I think, a key role in the development, in the production of the microchips. Not just us using them, right, to do our computations, to do our research, which is true, right? To do the AI technologies, the computes, as you all had said, it's going to need the technology, but I think we also need to be a part of the development of the technology. And it could be through collaborations with others. So it may not be just, this is not a single PI effort. This is not a single researcher effort. This really is national networks that are multidisciplinary, cross-sector partnerships to really think about how to push the research enterprise forward. So there's opportunity, like I said, with funding, both on the research development side and then also on the workforce development side. And I would hope that mathematics really will play a key role in supporting and pushing and providing new opportunities and innovation. So I think it's an exciting time. I've enjoyed being on the HBCU CHIPS network. I've learned a lot. I am an applied mathematician, classically trained in PDEs, dynamical systems, but it's nice to be that lifelong learner to say, wait, what is this? Oh yeah, this could be that, and what about this? And really help map out some steps forward. So.
And if I can add to that as well, I think the awareness is great because it's not just, so again, I said my research is in the area of microelectronics, so it's easy for me to see how I fit in this area. I think in having conversations, so in my role as VP for Research and Sponsored Programs, I want my faculty members and researchers to be aware of opportunities because a lot of times we do get in silos and we are like, this is what the applications of my research. And so I have researchers in material science and I'm trying to tell them a clear application that applies to the CHIPS Act because they're like, that's not my area. And I'm like, there's so many applications of what you do, and AI is one of the, AI is actually being used for chip design with the automation. It's just awareness, I think, which allows researchers to be able to pursue new opportunities, new applications. So I think the first thing is just to be open to see where do I fit, because there's funding. As you know, it's said, it's funding, it's opportunities. It's a great way to work with others in other disciplines. So it's just a great opportunity for researchers who are open to try to really find out, okay, let me look into the CHIPS Act and how my research can apply, because it is across probably all STEM disciplines.
Yeah. And do you have any closing remarks?
Oh, well,
Sure.
I would just say as a call to action that everyone, as you think about what it is you can contribute to our community, take opportunities to teach, to share, to collaborate, and to lead. We definitely need more STEM-focused leaders in, businesses. A lot of the people on my team appreciate the fact that I have a technical background and that I can empathize with them, because one of the things that I do, I try to provide them top cover. If there's something going on with the client, if it's non-technical, I try to take care of it so that the team can do the technical work. And they appreciate that. That builds trust with them. And so I would say be open to evolving and rising into these roles where you are a leader. I don't have hands on keyboard as much as I would like to, but I do, through my team, I live, vicariously. So I would say to definitely think of that evolution.
Wonderful. Well, let's thank our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.